Hey guys, and welcome to the Garage Athlete Show. We're actually on episode 39. I got the episode numbers wrong last week because I lost my notes. So that was a great interview last week we had with Tim Swinson. Is it Swinson?
Yeah, Swinno, poshest Scotsman you've ever met.
So if you guys didn't catch that, make sure you go and catch last week's episode because I was just literally sat here like starstruck. Like I
honestly, was it
kind of like coming up. So
yeah,
it was like an international was just like my idea of heaven.
Yeah, well, to considering what he's done in rugby, it's very. I was thinking about it today. Like he's since we played together, he's gone on to do the things people dream of doing, like representing the country. I think they won the Magners League with Glasgow. Playing for top clubs. Absolutely living the dream. But so just great to talk to about it. Just open, honest about the amazing highs, the lows, the fun that comes with it. His thoughts behind a lot of things. And I think Swinno's always been a very switched on guy. So we're talking about he's doing a freaking law degree at the moment. I think very intelligent, hardworking dude. But it was just a big. Yeah, just it was great to talk to him. But I think for me personally, it was nice to talk to a professional rugby player from when I was playing, but not come away from the conversation feeling sad or bitter, because that's why I kind of haven't spoken to anyone in rugby for quite a while properly, because it was too emotionally for me. It was too much. Like I couldn't deal with it. I was so sad that I couldn't watch rugby for about 7 years maybe. I just couldn't do it. I could watch an international, you gotta watch a country, but if I saw the Prem, I just couldn't do it. I'd switch it off. So it was nice to talk to someone who's literally done the complete opposite of what I did, has done everything right, did the degree alongside, doing bits and pieces like that, done that, had the long career, me burnt out, didn't have anything to go to, life's upside down. But it was lovely to speak to someone like that and just feel really like, oh wow, this is amazing, instead of looking at myself and being a bit sad. So that was a nice big personal moment for me, a nice bit of emotional growth, shall we say. That was good.
So what's new with you? You said the Twins are getting into a bit more of a routine now. So I know you've managed to actually get in and train like semi-frequently recently.
Yeah, well, I've been. It's one of those things. We're probably speaking to the converted here, but you don't realize how much your home gym means to you until you can't really use it, or you have a period of time away from it. You come back in, like being able to. We're doing this podcast now about I think it's
coming up to a year now.
Coming up to a year, we're nearly there. I was thinking about that actually. So nearly up to a year. We're now doing it around 7:30 at night. At the moment, all my kids are in bed, and it took them a while to get down. But this is the time I normally train, and I've switched things up quite a bit. I'm now exploring the more sort of building side of things, and it's provided like a new challenge. And I'm now, typically I would never train more than 4 times a week. Now I'm looking to push between 5 and 6. I don't necessarily have to, but on the routine, I'm trying to working out as I go. It's almost like a big experiment.
More frequency but shorter sessions then, so you can squeeze them in.
Well, you think so, but before you know it, you get carried away. You've done what did I do today? I'm on a slight deload this week because I think I did too much and I ran myself into the ground. So my neck swelled up. I was feeling crap. Didn't feel right at all. So I took 2 full days off. Which was a very good decision looking back on it. Yes, I missed out on some sessions, but in the grand scheme of things, I needed that time to stop, to come back into it, which you learn about as you train for a while. It's not you're a pussy, you're not following the program. It's just being, honest.
As the longer that you've trained in, the more when your body needs a rest.
You just know. Like you'll have days. Remember when I took that polar bear juice, whatever it's called? Like, man, I was just having the time of my life. It's just like
you've not tried that many pre-workouts, have you?
Oh, I haven't. The only pre-workout I've tried was a sample of. No, I'm lying. I'll tell you my pre-workout experience. So I had a sample of. Do you remember? It was PhD Wired. From I think is it Monster Supplements? I don't know if that website's still going, but basically it was this brand PhD, which looks really like, I think they became quite big, like really clinical, like in a white tub, nice variety. It was good. I had one of those before our session. It was great, and that was like, oh my god, we're talking here 2000. 7 maybe, like a long time ago,
okay.
probably even before that. Then when we played rugby, we did get given pre-workout sometimes before games, which, by the way, if you take them at night, is a nightmare. Like, you used to take a pre-workout before A-League on a Monday night and you wouldn't sleep. You just wouldn't. It was crap. But I did that before games. But in terms of training pre-workouts, not a lot at all, like nothing really. So
the good thing about the Arctic nutrition ones is they're all clinically dosed. So when Elliot was he was getting all the stuff together to do his review, like I went and then did some research on the active ingredients that basically aren't caffeine and kind of like what they do. I think one of the questions is about pre-workout today, so I've got the answers to that. But like there's certain ones in there that like build up over time, like your creatine and your citrulline. And there's others that are, it's basically, all it is a lactate buffer. So in theory, if you take it regularly, it should be able to help your basically endurance so that you can push harder for longer, so you get better quality sessions. But like the pre-workout industry is one of those things where up until like in the days of like NO Explode and what was the one that got banned?
Norotine Heavyweight Pro. Do you remember that one?
What they would have is they'd have these what do they call them? Like
pro hormones in them.
Yeah, that. And
it fucking works.
They used to put like signature blends in or something, so they wouldn't tell you the ingredients. So basically, you were just paying for like 600 milligrams of caffeine and
do you remember Redline
to make your face burn, and then you just be like, oh my god.
Well, that's
and then
it's caffeine. You feel like
1,3-dimeth in, which basically, if you take too much of it, is like speed. So when these guys are just like, yeah, bring back like old school Jack 3D, it's like just go find some drugs. Like it'll do the same thing, and you'll probably die. So.
You see, I remember that like Redline was a big one when I was a kid. So it was just like, I think I've just avoided pre-workouts because it's the whole like just that whole thing that goes along with it. But basically, like, it's the classic meme of that massive tank of water and the guy like slapping on some duct tape to it. So it's like me feeling shit all the time. Pre-workout, what do you get? Fix it. But like normally, like we had a laugh about this the other day. We always preach sleep, nutrition, rest, recovery, all this stuff. I'm in a period where I can't do any of that, it's not, so I'm just like, I will slap that bandage on like 10-fold at a time. So I was like, fuck it, give me the pre-workout. It's like, give me the drugs. But you know what, I took it. And what I liked about it the most was, and it might be psychosomatic or, I don't know if that's the right word, placebo. I'm not too sure, but I just felt good. And it just felt everything, whether the quality of the session was better or not, I just really enjoyed that session. I remember it was an upper body session. Chris, one of our moderators, sent me a sample, very kind of him. I remember doing it, just feeling like, this is just good. Like, it just felt like I had a good connection to what I was trying to achieve, what I was trying to do. I mean, maybe this is where pre-workout maybe is more aimed at bodybuilders, because I'm not tied into the weight so much of what I was doing. It was more how it felt. It felt really good. So I was like, oh, this is cool. I like this a lot. Because what I'm doing at the moment is, I'm still trying to break away from my meathead tendencies, as in I don't need to, but trying to break away from the sets of 3, maybe move into less sets of my main exercise and do more sets of the accessory stuff. So I've been watching a lot of great videos from Mike Israetel, who's a guy from Renaissance Periodization, very, very, but there's tons of great information out on YouTube from him, like hours and hours of it. You got to sit through it. It's kind of like a lecture. He's a professor, so you have to sit there and listen. But it's interesting. I've always been very, and I still am, guys I work with, it's all strength focused. We want to get stronger. If we get bigger, it's to get bigger, to get stronger, which is the way I think most people should be. But I'm now looking at it from a pure hypertrophy point of view, and it's really interesting seeing, and it kind of makes sense a bit more now. And maybe my own personal bias and things I would say, well, that's fucking stupid, or what are they doing that for? Why are they doing this? But then when you look at it from the other side, you're kind of like, okay, well, I understand this a bit more. So little things like, for me, I would do in a strength program one day, let's say 3 sets of 6. The next day I'll do some 3s, maybe at the end of the week do some 8s, maybe on squats. Not a lot of sets, a lot of hard heavy work, looking to get stronger. Whereas I say a bodybuilder, instead of doing say 5 sets of 5 on squats, they might look at doing say 3 sets of 5 on squats and then 2 sets on leg press. So they've got that slight variation. So although it's the same amount of work, they've split it up slightly more to, hit the muscle from a different angle, give it a different stimulus. Because, if you're squatting, I know you've talked about this a lot as well. Yes, it's fantastic, but and this is where I'm trying to break away from my athlete strength bias is, your back might be the limiting factor, your technique might be the limiting factor. So if we're talking purely that we just want to work the quads, maybe doing some squats and a leg press is a better option, which of course it is. And that's why, bodybuilders talk about their favorite machines, right? I know Jordan Peters talks about this a lot, like the way it feels, the strength arc. For some people it works better than others. Bodybuilders will go to certain gyms, or in my area there's a couple of guys who rotate around gyms because they're like, I need to use this hammer strength chest press because I need that stimulus that it gives as compared to the techno gym one down the road, which I'm just like, blows my mind, but it kind of makes sense now. I understand it, so I'm quite enjoying training from that side of things, looking into it. So things like I am now almost 100% convinced if you're looking to build muscle for your squats, you need to go high bar, because you're relying less on hits your quads more. You're relying, and this is the interesting thing, and this goes for deadlifts as well. So Jordan and Mike talk about this. You're looking to not get a biomechanical advantage. So if you squat low bar, the bar's low on your back, you sit back into your hips, you're trying to shorten the range of motions and use your body leverages as best as possible to make that lift, which if you're a strength athlete makes absolutely 100% sense. You'll spend your whole life trying to perfect that technique to maximize your leverages. Same with the deadlift. If you get the pickup off the floor on a deadlift correct, you should be able to hold 60k like it's weightless because you've anchored your hips down and it will pop off. So switching that around, and this is where it's, for me, it's been a bit of an eye-opener. High bar squats, tons of quad activation. You can go, nice and deep, lower load, big stretch. I think if you can ever get in a way where you use less weight to get more out of it, that's only a good thing, because I believe so. So same on the stiff leg deadlift. I know bodybuilders are big on this. The stiff leg deadlift, you're getting rid of that biomechanical advantage by starting in I'm doing quote unquote here, a shit position of keeping your hips really high up, and you're using just tons of back strength to get up, and you'll feel your erectors and hamstrings blow up.
Definitely. I think it was interesting for me, obviously, posting that video. Hi, Rachel, you're right. Posting that video of me kind of like squatting. So I didn't do a squat for like a year. And it's amazing like how many just little bad habits like I picked up. Like my head was all over the place.
So it was like one of them bobbing dolls, wasn't it?
Yeah, literally. And it was probably 40 kilos less than I was kind of doing before, but my hamstrings were in bits for like days.
I remember you telling me that, and that blew my mind.
But I think it's because I've been doing so much quad work and my hamstrings are like lagging behind slightly. So the actually having to control the weight like all the way down, like my hamstrings haven't been bothered by squats this week, but having to control that weight like all the way down, as you said, like for me, it's putting my ego aside, focusing on the speed and the quality. And as you said, if you can make a lighter weight, like do the work, like all you're doing is you're saving your joints. There's then plenty left in the tank to be progressively overloading it. And at the end of the day, you're still stimulating hypertrophy. Like I want Max to build the maximum amount of muscle with the minimum amount of stimulus possible, because that then gives me more scope to then be able to then kind of like progress it.
Yeah, you got to be thinking there on the technique of using your hamstrings. Basically, I squatted wrong for about 10, 12 years, maybe. I didn't make best use of my hips. I would always break from the knees a bit more because I've got quite strong quads relative to my posterior chain, which I sort of, it's a strength of mine. But I would always squat, knee break, and it did actually affect my depth. And it was always my quads. I never ever felt, everyone's like, use squats to make your booty grow. I'd never felt them in my ass once, like ever. It just didn't happen until one day I suddenly, put my ego aside. I learned to break from the hips a bit more. And the next day, my groins adductors were absolutely ruined. I can actually feel my arse working. And I was like, oh, now it makes sense a bit more. So just that small technique change of doing it properly, obviously you get used to it and you build back up. But yeah, a bit eye-opening there. But, yeah.
How are you, Rachel?
How are you, Rachel?
I'm all right. I've got my head just jumped off a final call because life takes over, and I was like, oh shit, get on. So
Well, don't worry, we haven't actually got onto any questions yet. Me and Dan have just been chatting away because it feels like I haven't spoken to you guys like properly, just because life's starting to get busy again with like the gyms kind of announcing they're opening up. We're into the spring now, so everyone's in that kind of like, everyone thinks January is the busy month for like personal trainers. It might be for gyms, but it's definitely not for trainers. Like February, March for me is always much busier than January. I think it's because it's a more expensive service, so people have to wait until they've been paid in January before they can jump on. So how are things going, or is everything sorted for kind of your reopening? I know you don't want to give away like too much. I know you've got some big things planned, but is everything going okay? Like, we just want to make sure that you're in a good place. No.
No. There's a lot to be going on, including premises itself.
Okay.
Obviously, a group training facility. That's the basis of what I offer, and my one-to-ones are very much focused on like rehab and like movement rehab. So obviously, I can open the doors on the 12th. I can't do my job.
Right.
I've even written to like my MP and things like that, because Dan will agree, like kind of coming from working in a gym where you like one-to-one and it's that one-to-one service interaction and people pay the membership. That seems to be how the government have very much grouped gyms, and it doesn't take into account sort of what comes underneath that umbrella. And like a lot of studios have been massively affected because we don't operate in the way that we're being kind of looked at and sort of provision given for. So it's a case of, okay, I'm not in the door, but I can't do my job, but I've still got to pay rent. I've still had to pay rent on a closed building. How does that work? Like, it's so frustrating.
That blows my mind, that way, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really does. I mean, yeah, I've had this conversation with a few, friends in the industry who own different kind of gyms, like, bodybuilding gyms, PT only gyms. And I'm like, how can you not? Like for the PT, like, I guess they've got, maybe the government has too much to do and think about, I don't know, but like, fuck, you've got gyms where it's one person on one PT and that's the only thing that goes on for that time, compared to gyms where there's other stuff going on like that. But then when the gym's open, as long as you're outside, I've read you can have up to 30 people. And it's just like, well, what? How does that make sense? When if you had like 6 people, say, in a nice big area inside, because it's inside you can't, but warehouses are kind of like huge big areas anyway. So it's really, it's not great.
It's manageable as well, isn't it? Because you know how many people you're going to have in there, everything's structured. It's not a normal kind of gym, free for all. There's no one going around making sure everything's cleaned, that everyone's kind of where they need to be. So I just need to kind of box it off, potentially look at a stop the gap model that's going to allow people to get back into doing what they're doing, gradually get me back to doing that. Because like I've mentioned to you guys before, I'm very much an in-person coach. I love the online side, and Zoom has obviously allowed for an element of that, but it's still not the same. And a lot of trainees themselves like benefit from having that person with them. Some people do need that palpable touch to actually connect mindfully with what they're doing, because we're very sensory based creatures and a lot of us respond in different ways in terms of our learning styles. So I think a lot of people will have missed out on kind of getting the most potentially out of their course of last year. Obviously keeping them going online, and as you guys do yourselves in your jobs, it is something's always going to be better than nothing. But if it's not what that person directly needs, then it's like we're looking at a whole year now. So in my eyes, the sooner we all get back to doing what we should be doing, the better. But I'm not going to go off on a rant because I've pretty much spent this week on podcasts or IG Lives having a little bit of a rant, and I'm like, Rachel, shut up.
It's not like you to rant, Rachel.
Actually, you know it's not, because I always have very valid reasons, but I'm like...
Right, let's jump into some questions before you two start having an argument. I'm an emotion, I know you won't. So first question's from Elliot. I'd like to ask, how do you guys feel about the huge amount of misinformation on platforms like YouTube? For example, today my wife watched a video and the lady said that women shouldn't do chest exercises because it will give them toned pecs. So yeah, how do you guys feel about like the influencers within the fitness industry, these people that have got massive followings but know F all actually about fitness?
Go on, Rachel, you jump in. I've been talking with Dom for a bit.
Okay, I kind of know Elliot, where Elliot's come from on this and the video in question, and it's actually a company, a very well-known brand as such, who are now diversifying in terms of who they have represent and things, but it's a little bit too late in the shortcoming for that. However, language, you need to be careful with language, because you are putting that out to the public. They're going to take it in a way where if it speaks to them and aligns with their personal belief, that's very much going to be something that can benefit them or become very detrimental to sort of their own route, especially if they're not guided by a coach, or worse still, by a coach who actually agrees with sort of that message coming from the social media side of things. For females, I do understand where sort of the misconception comes from in terms of what they actually see in the media and what kind of, especially in the past, come around as in you lift sort of more than 5 kilos, imagine transforming overnight. Like, we can only dream of that. But for females, having sort of a toned physique is what is still referred to, as opposed to actually having a level of muscle mass, which creates definition and shape, which is ultimately what females are after. Getting rid of the word toned. Training your chest even is something that needs to be done just from a pure upper body strength perspective, because you're thinking about, if you're going to be more quad dominant versus hamstring dominant, you're training your glutes, you're going to have body parts that aren't creating sort of a well-balanced physique, including sort of how you carry yourself physically as well. So, and a real plus side of training chest as well, even just including some form of push-up in your training, doesn't have to be any like weight-based, like added resistance other than body weight, is having a bra that fits really nicely. Because one of the things I always remember is that horrible stubborn bit of fat that comes between where the bra is and where the inside of your shoulder is, and it's that bit there that females will always grab onto. Your wives would know what I'm talking about, guys. And for me, that was something I noticed when my body fat went down. I increased my muscle mass a bit. That wasn't there anymore, and it actually gave me sort of like a better sort of physique in terms of what my chest looked like. It made my shoulders sort of broader, but in a way that you could sort of see my collarbones a little bit, and it gave for me the appearance that I was after. Not looking at it sort of, I got rid of my breasts and replaced them with pecs, like that doesn't happen. But again, it just comes down to sort of the balance of your physique and what you're trying to create for yourself. Again, if that message of not training chest aligns with what your belief is, you're not going to train chest in any capacity. But I'd heavily advise including some element of chest-based work.
So I think
talking from a
it's one of those where I think it's feeding into that misconception that a lot of women still have, that by doing weight training, you're just going to turn into one of these like freaky female bodybuilders that are probably shooting up 500 milligrams of test every week. So by doing chest-based weight work does not necessarily mean that very, very quickly you're going to develop these massive pec muscles. Like, if you look at like natural bodybuilders, they take years, and this is men who naturally have testosterone, they take years to try and develop a thick chest, and some of the guys kind of like never do. So I think it's probably it's one of those things where I won't mention the particular brand, but their followers are well known for basically having like all the gear but no idea. They're the ones that are messing about with those booty bands rather than actually kind of like loading up bars and actually kind of getting to work. So I think it's just one of those things where I think influencers, because they can't be held account by anyone, they just put their stuff out on the internet, and there's no one to go, well, actually that's not right, apart from other influencers then calling them out to get more clickbait. So it just seems like it's easier for people to put out inflammatory stuff that's going to set people off and cause an argument. I think we were having a discussion about, is it James Smith? Does the same thing. Like, is it James Smith?
Yeah.
Or is it Jamie Smith?
Yeah.
But he puts out inflammatory stuff, like basically calling people the C word, like for going into the what was it? The keto diet. Because he knows for a fact the people that follow that are going to be triggered by that, and then they're going to thingy on it. And then the people that agree with him are also going to then be laughing at all the people that are on the keto. And the internet seems to be a place where it's easier just to get people to argue and go, here, buy my product, when the dust's settled. So what's your thoughts, Dan?
I mean, again, I guess it was a two parts to the question, isn't it? So in terms of, I'm thinking purely from if you wanted, so if they're avoiding the bench because they don't want to build that area, but I'm kind of like, well, if you build your chest, it's almost like, I might sound like a dick here, but it's cheaper than a boob job, isn't it? Like building up the muscles in your chest, like, especially when, women don't really have the same kind of pectoral makeup as a man does, but like, I've trained girls for years and they all press, all of them. Like, I don't think they train with me if they didn't do a press, but I've only ever seen it have positive effects. It's interesting hearing Rachel talk about, that side boob, whatever you want to call it, or how it felt around her sort of the upper chest area. It's only ever had a positive effect on the girls I've trained from them pressing. Physique wise, like we're talking purely physique here. Yes, Rachel's really got into their balance and the importance of building that strength up. But then, in terms of influences, I think it's an area I don't really go into, and I don't stay away from maybe on purpose, but I think with the circles I work in and I'm interested in, more the sort of strength based, more some movement and that kind of stuff, I don't really come across it that much. But we were talking earlier, like just sort of browsing Facebook, like people are still giving out, like I backtracking a bit again, I just presume we've all know about calories in, calories out, eat high protein, do strength first, cardio comes a bit afterwards, that kind of stuff. I just presume people are doing that, but fuck me, they're not. I sort of had a quick browse and people are still saying things like no carbs after 5, do this Cambridge diet, do a juice cleanse. You don't want to do any of that, like we're saying, this will make you bulky. And then when they see these girls and guys they watch on TV who have a rig and then get paid to produce and promote, the classic product of that waist trainer thing. I know it's quite big in a lot of fitness models, typically sort of the South American sort of women, and they've got these incredible physiques, and they're like, oh, wear this trainer, wear this waist trainer, it's going to really help you. And I'm like, people are still buying all this crap and the creams and all that, and it's like, wow, fuck, like this is still such a big thing. And you can see why a lot of it was fun for people for a long time to attack Joe Wicks, right? Like it almost was like, remember when evidence-based training was like the buzzword, and basically for people that don't know, everyone would watch a Lane Norton video and presume they would take his information, do it their own way, and then presume they knew everything. And this is all complete bullshit. I think James got caught out once, like being stuff off and on. I don't know about that. I shouldn't go too much into that, but these guys have been putting some information out, but I think they will try and want to emulate that success. Like, James Smith has done it, and he's done it well. He's done incredibly well. Like everyone, he's almost a household name, right? And on the whole, his message is pretty good. But now every PT and his dog is trying to be a James Smith, and to me, it just comes across really ungenuine, and it's almost like see-through. Like, I guess for us it is, but you see him as just like, okay, put some swear words in there, talk about calories in, calories out. blah blah blah, and then that's it. And I got a bit pissed off at that whole evidence base bit.
Well, that's not their personality. Whereas to me, like, he's either a very, very good actor, or James Smith just doesn't give a shit. So he would speak to somebody like that, and that comes across in his presentation that he just doesn't care. Whereas, as you said, you've got other people that are then trying to copy that, and it seems really, really forced. You can tell when somebody's kind of like not being themselves, especially with video, because their body language isn't right. You can tell they don't feel natural. That it's kind of like, it's not them, it's not their character. But I think YouTube and things like that has brought about a lot of people that put on this character and put on this persona to get views, to get clicks. But then if you met them in real life, to be a completely different person.
I think putting on the show is cool. Like when Eddie Hall did his seminar up here, he was like, yeah, definitely put on a show. Of course I do. Like, it's all part of the thing. But he does it well, and he knows what he needs to do. Like in terms of James Smith, like personally, I can't get down with him like at all. Like I can't dig him. I think it's because I grew up playing rugby with that kind of character, like everywhere. The kind of, I don't know where he's from in terms of private school or not, but that kind of dude was every club all the time. It wasn't. I would clash.
I was say it's a stereotypical rugby player, like
I would clash. But but in terms of his message, fucking brilliant. If we're getting people talking about prioritizing strength and calorie deficits and organizing macros, it's great. But he knows what he's doing there with that kind of stuff. But it is funny seeing people jump on his bandwagon and quote him, but he must just like sit back and just love it when people are like calorie fucking deficit. He's like, hey, buy my book, thank you very much. But, he's done incredibly well. Yeah, he's absolutely crushed it. Like he really has crushed it. People.
I think it's when you get other coaches like emulating him, and it's a case of that's fine. He's got his kind of own message and own service, but in that respect, you're then going to that person, buying their message and their service, which is a kind of a copycat of his. So in terms of the service you're buying, what are you actually buying? Are you buying someone who is genuine, knows themselves as a coach, can ensure that you're going to get the results because it's genuinely coming from them? That's kind of my concern with everything. Like you said, there's so many versions of him out there. And like when I had like a massive social media cleanse, which I do once in a while with pretty much everything, like, you'll look at things and you've just got the same sort of message coming through. I'm like, have we not moved on from here? Do people not know themselves as a coach? If you've been in the game longer than 6 months, you should already kind of have an idea with what your strengths are, what your voice is, what your message is, and what you're good at. And then stay with that and go with it, because the people who need you will come to you and will find you. You don't need to be somebody else. That's not going to get you anywhere other than a lot of unhappiness when you realize, well, everybody's also doing this, so what else do I have to offer? And you really don't, unless you've got something about you which makes you even better. But then again, that's not your product and your message. It's still kind of a copied version of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I think it's brilliant when people, yes, you can take a message. Like, I had this battle with my own self, thinking, oh, I don't need to put this information out. No one needs to know how to squat all this. It's all out there. It's like, but then, speak to a couple of mates, like, yes, it is out there, but they haven't heard it in your voice. And this is what you are passionate about. You've worked with me. It's all about, the training side of things, and then your nutrition as well, but it's not the everything, but it's the training, get that right, how you progress the program, all that kind of stuff. But you got me thinking there, like, there is still a lot of coaches who it's almost like they get their program from their coach, and then within a couple of weeks you'll have it in your inbox, and it's kind of like, well, I could just go straight there.
We've had conversations about this before, haven't we?
Yeah, we have. And from a coaching point of view, it is, I guess I can see the temptation, because it's easy, isn't it? You just do that, put it in, yeah, you get that. But it doesn't feel genuine. But I'd say for me personally as a coach, it's taken, I've been training coach since I was like 15, 16. I'd say it's taken at least 15 years plus maybe to finally decide, this is my method, this is how I do things. This is the social media thing as well. Like, there's so many different things at the same time. I've had this battle with clients because they go on their Instagram, they see, you know, this is like Amanda Lawrence or, you know, Tony Cliff doing these, you know, massive heavy singles, and then go back off and do loads of other stuff. They think because they're not doing that the program's no good. There's so much resistance to it, to the point where there's so much resistance to the program I'm providing. I know they're not going to get results, even though I've seen this program style work for so many people. I know it's not going to work because they're not interested, because they're not following this guy on Instagram doing that. It's like this kind of, you know, jumping from side to side. Like, I know bodybuilding, you know, there's this big thing about myo reps and, you know, blood flow training, all this kind of stuff. And I presume a lot of bodybuilding coaches are like, yeah, that's great, but we're not using it right now. Well, maybe later. But the guy's like, but I need it now. I have to do it now. It's like, oh, that's been a battle as well from the coaching point of view.
Definitely. Right.
So sorry, I went off on a bit there.
That's okay. Next
That's
question. What, in your opinions, is the most pointless exercise you see people prioritizing in their workouts, and you're not allowed to say leg extensions?
So, for those who don't know, I'm of the opinion that leg extension is, in terms of floor space and what it provides, the most useless piece of equipment you can buy in a gym. I will say now, now I'm training more bodybuilders are, I probably wish I had access to a leg curl, because I think to isolate the hamstrings, you know, it would be nice to have. But, you know, leg extensions, you know, that's another conversation. But in terms of most pointless exercise, I would say, I don't know if people still do this, but a tricep kickback. And I'm not sure if people still do this or not. So from a physique point of view, I'm going to go tricep kickbacks. You know, you're bending over, fingernails up. There's so many things before that why would you ever even do it? I remember seeing my friend did a lot of strongman with James, and he was doing them at the gym. I was just like looking, like, what are you doing? Like, like no one got strong doing kickbacks. And then I think,
in terms of like the strength curve, it's probably one of the worst exercises for a tricep, because it puts the most pressure on where the tricep's weakest, and then where it's strongest, there's like nothing on it. So
yeah, it does make sense. And then in terms of a pointless exercise in terms of maybe performance, for me it's a crunch, lying on your back, just crunching forward and back. I've seen loads of backs destroyed by repetitive crunches over and over again. That would be my functional, most pointless exercise to get a strong core. You know, that's not how the core is meant to move in performance environments. You know, you don't lie down and just crunch all the time. There might be a time where it could be in, but seeing people just crunch and crunch and crunch is just not the best idea. So yeah, kickbacks and crunches.
Do you want to go next, Rachel?
Sure. I'm going to kind of do my take on an answer to this. And I'm not going to say a bad or a worst exercise. I'm going to mention kind of exercise or program in order, because especially when we come to sort of, I'll work with clients who will come to me with issues with the pelvic floor, pelvic health, and I'll work alongside kind of their program that their coaches come to me with. So I need to be very careful about sort of the line I toe and not stepping on the programming side of things, but just kind of my take on it and always the reasons why. And I can't even tell you how many times I've seen some programming which I personally don't feel matches a client, but their coach they've designed that for whatever reason. And at the end of a deadlift session, I will see sets of crunches. Now, if you deadlift regularly, you will completely understand where I'm coming from. The position your body has been in for heavy sets, heavy reps in that session, the last thing it needs at the very end of that, bearing in mind you'll probably be doing further work on glutes and hamstrings in that session if it is sort of a pull focus session, that lower back's going to be fried.
Yeah.
Then you're asking that client to just go into spinal flexion that they've been so much weight through. And I'm just like, okay, there are better things to do. I'd advise you to get rid of this. So I have to be very careful with how I'll word things. But I'm not going to say there's a bad exercise. I'm going to sort of say my take on it, which is there's a bad exercise order, and that's in terms of your body's needs, what your session involves, and your priorities as well. And that can even come down to rep ranges that you're choosing to use for certain exercises. It needs to match a goal. It needs to match what you want to get out of that session, because you're not going to go in, let's put leg extensions in for example. You're not going to go in and do 3 sets of leg extensions, 12 to 15 rep range. Then you're going to jump in, fry your quads a little bit more, maybe sissy squat, and then jump in a squat rack. Is that going to be optimal to what you want to achieve? I'd say pretty much under any goal-based circumstance, no. So it's not really about the exercise, but more about what's within your session, what your program that looks like across the week.
I'd agree with that one. I think for me, it is making exercises too complicated too quickly. Like people that are going in and like reverse banding, like they go to a hack squat and they'd like throw loads of bands on, and or they start deadlifting with chains when they can't even deadlift like 100 kilos, like just as a normal deadlift, because they've seen on, what is it, Louis Simmons like does loads of band work or chain work with his ridiculously strong athletes. Whereas would they get better just keeping it basic and getting fucking strong in those basic movements? Like the amount of guys I've seen, like it seems to be at the gym, it's resistance bands, it's adding resistance bands to machines that don't need them. Like I saw a guy adding resistance bands to a plate loaded lat pull down. Like the reason why you'd add resistance bands onto a machine is to make it harder where the muscle is naturally stronger. So normally a press or a leg movement. In a pull movement, when the muscle is fully shortened, it's at its weakest. You do not want to be adding more resistance where the muscle is at its weakest. You are completely missing the point of adding resistance bands to an exercise. So yeah, for me, it's adding bands or chains to exercises when they don't need to be there, or you're at a point where you don't actually need to have them in there.
You got me thinking, like, you made me laugh because I guess home gyms, a lot of the time, because we're in, one car garages, budget constraints, etc., we are thinking outside the box to do certain things. Like, say today, I actually did some calf raises. I know, right? But I used the safety squat bar against the rack to go up and down. Hey, presto, I've got a calf raise there. But we're talking pretty quick fix. But fuck me, I've seen some amazing ones where, by the time it's all being constructed, put together, the lift is happening, and it's like, was it really worth it? Like 20 minutes, half an hour to get it all set up in this particular way, moving all things around there. And, like you say, could you have got more out of maybe just hammering a bench press or something? I don't know. But it's part of the fun of having a home gym. But then it's also, I think people go overboard a little bit.
Definitely. Sorry, babe. Mrs. wants to get to the fridge.
Mate, you cannot be blocking your missus to the fridge. Are you mental? If you actually got a death wish.
Well, she's correcting me. She's going to the kettle, which is obviously even more important. Okay, next question. When is a PB not a PB? I.e., if it's executed with bad form, are you just cheating yourself and risking injury, or is this part and parcel of stretching your abilities?
You go first, Don.
It depends on what your goal is. So if you're going for an all-out 1 rep max, your technique isn't going to be perfect, or else that's not an all-out 1 rep max. However, it can't go to absolute garbage, because then, yes, you are putting yourself at risk of injury and probably stretching yourself kind of a little bit too far. What I would probably say is, one, if you're at a point where you're still in the first kind of like year or two of your training, should you be going for PBs quite regularly? Probably not, because have you honed in on that movement pattern to the point where it's good enough that you can actually perform a 1 rep max and keep your technique at, say, 90-95% of kind of like being up there? Or do your reps look like absolute garbage? If your reps look like garbage at a 1 rep max, like, are you really kind of getting anything from it other than just teaching your neurological system this is how to do a crap rep? So for me, from like a bodybuilding point of view, I would rather see somebody go for a PB on like a set of 6 or a set of 8 rather than the kind of like a set of 1, just because I feel it's a lot safer and they'll get more out of it in the long term.
Cool. Do you want to go, Rich?
Yeah, I'll go straight on. When is it not 1? And this is something I've legitimately seen. 1 RM in a safety in a Smith machine as a Smith machine squat. I don't know if anybody else has ever seen that. Like, I don't really understand how you'd go into a Smith machine and think I'm going to go for 1 RM back squat on a Smith machine, because it doesn't have that carryover, and it was then reported as being like a PB back squat. And I was like, but you're in a Smith machine, like you haven't had to actually do so much of that work. I do get where someone's coming from, because that might be sort of how they need to train for various reasons linked to sort of their movement. If they're recovering from an injury, it might be a marker of progress sort of outside of that, could be related to the sort of stability. But I was like, you still need to give context around it. So that was like my big one there, a Smith machine back squat PB. What's your thoughts, Dan?
I think you've been an interesting point there. You got me thinking. I'll go back to him again, but have you seen the video, Don, of Jordan doing his 1 rep max in the Smith machine?
No.
Yeah,
I'm surprised he didn't break it, to be honest, because that guy's strong.
Yeah, well, here's the thing. Like, his argument is that he's too big, because he's got to do it with his hands here. I think his girlfriend unracks it for him, and he's, oh mate, it's obscene the amount of weight he's got. You know what he's like. But like, yeah, but he did 1 rep max in the Smith machine. But it was interesting hearing him talk about it. He was like, I'm a bodybuilder. I don't really squat for various reasons. I use the Smith machine, so I want to know what I can do. So I guess in that context, it kind of makes sense. I mean, maybe 1 RM for bodybuilders, that's another conversation. But the really good point Rachel made there was, when you claim a PB is a PB for something else when it's not quite that lift. So I don't really care so much anymore, but I do care when it comes to, like strongman's got 1,000 different PBs for 1,000 different things. So say if someone's claiming a trap bar deadlift or a block pull as their deadlift max, it's like, well, it's not. The next thing is, this is so anal, but like, if it's a suited max compared to a raw max, they're not the same thing. It's going to get even more ridiculous now. If they're using a deadlift bar compared to a stiff bar, it's not the same thing. If we're talking a wrap squat to a sleeve squat, they're not the same thing. I mean, this is why strength sports are never going to be mainstream, because there's too many fucking nuances and stupid things going on. You have to be in it to understand it. So, when people claim their high bar squat is X, but when you look at their position, it's like probably half an inch higher than their low bar squat. It's like, is it really a high bar squat? So maybe when people are claiming lifts, which aren't necessarily the lifts they're meant to do, which is conversely one of the reasons I urge people to do a competition if you're serious about the strength training, because you'll find out soon enough, if it is a legit lift. So big one, squat. When people claim gym squat lifts, well, is it to depth? It's like, well, you're like, yeah, it's to depth. It's like, well, okay, have you put yourself in a competition and had 3 qualified judges around you tell you that it's to depth? It's like, well, no. It's like, well, we'll claim it as a gym PB, but is it though? That was actually the thing that spurred me on to do my first powerlifting comp. I did have a problem with depth, kept getting called high. So did a meet and then got white lights. I got 1 red light, so the rest of them were all white, and went up to 240 that means. I was like, fuck yes, I can put that to bed now and say, fuck you, I can squat to death. So that's how I'm wired, by the way. So I think things like, if you're claiming comp standard, there's another one is there's a strongman deadlift, which is what I call when you yank it to your knees and develop an exit plan where you just fucking hit it, however you need to do it, just get it up to the body.
I love that.
And then there's the powerlifting standard, which is no hitching, fully locked out, shoulders retracted. So there's this different standards. So I think in terms of going back to technique, I'm of the opinion the reason we practice technique is to lift the most amount of weight possible. So if you're lifting a 1RM and there has been a slight form breakdown, and we can talk tiny nuances, you've had a technique breakdown. So theoretically, have you lifted the most amount of weight you can? Maybe not. Not to say, when you do 1RM, shit's going to change. Personally, I'm going to shift forward in my squat to use my quads because I haven't got the back strength to finish it off. But if I can keep better position bar path, maybe if the bar hasn't drifted forward that tiny bit, I could add 5-10 kilos to my PBC. But that's why if you talk to any lifter worth their salt, they will never be happy with what they've done. They will always tell you what went wrong. Even when someone looks and goes, bro, that was perfect, you crushed it and all that. It's like, no, I know I should have done this. I flared my elbow a bit too early. I think that it's why it's a constant battle to always get better. And that side of things. So for me, if there's been a technique breakdown, and there will be slightly, is it actually your true expression of what you can do? And that's why we strive so much for perfect technique. So when we come to those 1RMs, we're giving ourselves the best chance to finish it. So that's my view on that bit. But then the other one is, claiming PB. That big one for me was everyone was claiming trap bar deadlifts as their deadlift. And I was like, that is just flat out outrageous. Like, you cannot, I deadlift 300. I'm like, oh, that's good. That's impressive. You're saying it's a trap bar. I'm like, it's still impressive. I was like, it's not a deadlift. Like, let's not pretend it is.
I'm being asked to open something.
So strong. You're a big manly man in the house opening up something.
Wow, I have no words.
But look at have you got a big sick forearm? But look at him. Look how happy he is. Look at him. Here you go. I've done my thing. Yeah.
Simple things.
I can't get it open now. My hands are all sweaty. It's really warm in here.
She's loosened it off as well, though, hasn't she?
It's because he wears gloves all the time. He can't use it, can he? Yes, he's getting trolled in the background. Come on, Don. The internet's watching, mate.
No pressure.
What the hell is this?
Oh, this is amazing. What are you trying to open?
The foot peel mask.
A foot peel mask?
A foot peel mask. I don't even know what it is. The perfect foot wonder. Remove dead skin for baby soft feet. And apparently they've made it Fort Knox to get into.
I love the fact for such a soft sounding thing, you can't open it. Mate, what you got to do, send it to Newcastle.
Get Rachel to open it.
Get Rachel to open it. Right.
Alice's will sort it out.
Oh, right, what's the next question? I'm going to get absolutely rinsed after this.
Mate, when a bodybuilder goes on a podcast with too strong, I love it. Oh, this is so good.
From Christopher Price, with the amount of new companies and startups for gym kit appearing over the last year, any advice on knowing which ones are legit and the quality of the products?
Have you opened it yet?
No. You guys start talking while I carry on.
He's got a slight hernia as he's trying to do this.
Oh, this is brilliant. Right. I'll start off. It's a bit of a minefield at the moment. There's hundreds of companies out there, and it's something I've been looking at a lot as well. I think me and Rach are pretty much like refreshing marketplace daily, looking at things, finding out what's in stock. Most of the time, knowing full well I'm not going to buy it, I'm just obsessed with looking for it. So when you're looking for things, the obvious one is, and this is, we've spoken about this many times, between us, do not send bank transfers. If someone asks for a bank transfer for selling kit, do not do it. It's too good to it's not even a question of too good to be true. It's just, do not do it. You're not protected. There's PayPal buys and goods, there's cash on collection when you get there, there's other ways of doing it. But if someone's asking for a bank transfer, no, you haven't got a leg to stand on when you send it. Just please don't do it. It just seems, even in this day and age, people are getting caught out by it constantly all the time. Just don't do it. The next thing is check Trustpilot for websites. Check the reviews, and Dun's mentioned this a couple of times, but check the reviews themselves, copy them and paste them into, I think, a web browser is it that you do, just to make sure it's not.
Google. If you tap into Google, if people have bought their reviews, what you'll find is they'll appear on 10 different websites that have got a similar product, just because there's companies now that have set up that will basically say, right, if you want 100 reviews, you pay us this amount of money, to kind of get around that thing where people are going and looking at reviews and they've got however many and they're all good, but people can just buy them now.
Yeah, another good one is check forums that you trust. So I think one of the big advantages of the Home Gym UK group is just asking. You know, it comes up a lot, but we would rather people ask, hey, have you heard of this website? And suddenly a load of responses, yeah, fantastic, yeah, good, yeah, definitely. Or no, like, so we're very clear if they're not a good website, we'll type straight away, do not buy. You know, Rachel's got a gym, so she's dealt with loads of different companies. I'm sure you've had some great ones and some poor ones, some you wouldn't recommend. And unfortunately, there are companies set up to scam or provide very inferior products, almost like you'll see the picture and it's like Wish, and when it arrives you'll be like, are you kidding? Like, there's been a couple of racks shared in the group, I won't mention companies, but you're just like, oh wow, like, yeah, not great. Or my favorite is heavy duty bench, yeah, rated to 100 kilos. You're like,
or so when they claim like commercial grade, like everything is claimed to be commercial grade, isn't it?
Commercial spec.
I mean, a gym would buy it, so
the classic one, those dumbbells Rachel shared earlier, those dumbbells, like someone's just got done for like eight grand of what looks like crap.
But again, that's one of the companies that I think they might have even approached us, but that was a while ago, and at the time no one had bought from them, so we were like, well, it might even just be me. I was like very reluctant because I hadn't bought anything. I didn't know anybody who had it. It'd be more like people buying pairs. Someone had dropped $8 grand on a full set for their gym from a fairly new company, but seemed to have an okay reputation, and they've just gone to shit completely. Can't get in touch with them, can't get the money back. They were blaming a manufacturing fault, but like I think it was Ben who said it was a company just up the road from him. So it's a case of, are they offsetting blame or not? So if a company hasn't been around that long, unless they've got kind of links you can follow up in terms of the reviews, even then checking it out sort of in our group, or even contacting one of the people who place the reviews directly, just like, where have you got them from, sort of how you found them. At the end of the day, it's your money, but it's also the quality of what you're buying. And if you're using them in a home gym, you're going to have kids around a lot of you as well. So it's not just your safety, it's the safety of your family. So kind of just keep an eye out. And if it seems too good to be true, it more than likely is right now, because even the second-hand price stuff, like people are getting ripped off here and there. Like Dan's mentioned with the cash side of things, people always want a deal in cash. That will kind of be what they'll come to for obvious reasons, but a lot of that is sort of your buyer protection at the end of the day, and you don't have any guarantee or any level of warranty either. So just spend a few more quid, because it could actually save like a lot of bother in the long haul.
Yeah,
if you buy cheap, you end up buying twice, 9 times out of 10. So as you said, sometimes if something is too good to be true, or like it just seems cheap or it seems off. Like for me personally, I'd rather go to a slightly more well-established company that have been around for a little while. So it's like the difference between going to somewhere like Mirror Fit or Primal or Muscle Squad or any of these companies that have just been around and they've got a track record that you can go and see. And I haven't heard, I've mentioned those 3 just because they seem to be the most popular companies kind of within the group, but like I've not heard of anybody getting really, really pissed off with any of those 3. Whereas there's some of the other ones where they're just like, right, I've been chasing somebody for like months, I've not been able to get my money back. Like they lost my kit, or the couriers like disappeared off with my kit, and there's so many things that kind of like can go wrong. At least if it's like a limited company has been around for a little while, you're going to have a leg to stand on if shit goes wrong. Whereas if it's a small startup that can just disappear, they can disappear off of your money.
Yeah, obviously in the home gym group as well, we've got reps from those companies as well. So we've got that level of contact and somebody who, you know, if you mention it, they're going to be monitoring it. So it's kind of a peace of mind before you even look to spend your money. They'll answer your questions. Like I know Steve's absolutely brilliant with that. Daisy was spot on all of last year when Mirrorfit had such a backlog of things. So it's kind of that reassurance before you even go anywhere. So for us, it's making sure that everyone who's a member in there's got that level of service before they even look to where they're going to place their money. And there's generally people in there who bought from most of the companies. And if it's a company that's not heard of, we're very unlikely to know between a lot of us. So it's a really good resource tool. Not that I'm plugging the group here, but in terms of
We do all the time.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Saving your money, saving some potential fatalities as well.
Yeah.
Just use it. As
Yeah,
long as it's not about an Aldi rack, we're good.
Speaking of which, I've got an
Aldi stuff. They're not an equipment manufacturer.
Do you know what? But do you know what though? You've got to choose the right things. Like, I wouldn't trust Aldi for my rack, but I've bought. I think I've got. Was it a slam ball from them? And I've got some yoga blocks. And I was like, it's fine. Like, they work really well for what I need it for. I know my battle ropes. Yeah, I've got some battle ropes, and they're brilliant. But we're not talking about things that are going to potentially cause me some massive harm if it goes wrong. So for like the little things, don't get me wrong, I fucking love a middle aisle. Like, I go little, like, only when I'm shopping for essential items, of course, like every week in the middle aisle to see what I can get because I'm obsessed with it. But like, I love a middle aisle bargain, but I wouldn't necessarily buy a gym rack from the middle aisle.
My shelves in the gym, you know, those metal shelf things, they came with the middle aisle of both Aldi and Lidl when they were like nearly out of stock.
They're on sale on Sunday, mate.
That's what I mean, £10, and those things are bomb-proof.
Like, I love, what I love is value for money. Now let's think about this in terms of, I like getting the rack, the bar, the plate that will do the job, do it great. Not necessarily the best or the most expensive, but you know it's going to be great. So for example, my rack, mid-range rack, 60mm box, you know, by no means a big primal, you know, amazing B3 rack, but can really handle everything I throw at it, does the job fantastically. Like my plates, cast iron, the black ones, yes, they're not, you know, shiny or calibrated or anything like that, but they do a good job and they've stood the test of time. So I like buying stuff which not necessarily costs the earth, but you know is going to do not just a good job, but a great job. But so you don't have to spend thousands and thousands. And if you want to spend thousands, great, more power to you, go for it, not a problem at all. But it does require research and scouring a lot of things to learn what is good and what not. This is why I used to enjoy Marketplace so much, because you could always pick up some amazing stuff, but you just had to be on the lookout for it and know what you're looking for. Like, a good one is my Ohio power bar, got for a couple £100, which I think brand new now is like 450 post Brexit. So you have to like look out and know what you're going for. But now
this is where
it doesn't exist.
A really good resource, because like before I became an admin on the group, which was probably about 18 months ago now, like I had no clue that there was so many different manufacturers, like what like is a good price for a rack, what's a low end rack, what's a medium end rack, what's a top end rack, same thing for bars. And you'll see these arguments like all the time on like Marketplace, where somebody will put up like cast iron barbell standard plates at like £2 a kilo, and somebody puts up like rogue calibrated like competition plates, and they're wanting like £5 a kilo. And like people are going off being like, you're a scammer, you're a scalper, blah blah blah. And it's like, that set would cost like $5,000 new. Actually, what he's asking for is a good price for it.
It was definitely plates the worst. Yeah, my favourite was will you take £5 in a packet of crisps? It's like, oh wow, original, mate. Not heard that one before. Oh, it just fucking does my head in. But like, you know, saying that, I posted some plates for sale, and you know, it was £2 a kilo. I picked them up for £1 a kilo, and then someone commented on them, oh, they were this price, blah, blah, blah. To which I just replied, yeah, the good old days, they don't exist anymore in the time being. Like, yes, plates you could pick up. You know, I actually kit out most of my gym for £1 a kilo, but it doesn't exist now. It just doesn't. You know, it's like, you know, diesel used to be what, like 50p a litre. Now it's like £1, whatever. Like, it doesn't exist at the moment. So, but it's knowing when you're not getting absolutely.
There was somebody in the group that was like, talking about adjustable dumbbells, and they were like, yeah, well, I picked up mine for this price like last year. It's like, that wasn't when COVID was happening, and you're comparing two different products that completely aren't the same. Like, I literally would like to like go through my screen and headbutt you in the nose, because you are winding me up that much. And then
I remember that.
They wouldn't drop it. And they were just like, can we just agree to disagree? And I was like, no, you are wrong. I'm going to make you believe you are wrong.
I've been hanging out with Rachel too much now.
Do you know what I've really liked about the group though? Sort of the evolution. Sort of, obviously, I joined it, I think, just before lockdown last year. And it's been really nice to see people who've gone, right, actually, I do want a home gym. This is forcing me into it. I'm going to get hold of whatever I can. And when you see what people started out with, it's like the then and now, really. And you see how they've then gradually built things up. But because of the resources that are in the group and people saying, oh, yeah, that is a good deal, get on it, or posting things that are in a home group and then sharing, like the sales side, you've seen people being able to build up what they've got at home without being ripped off and feeling as though they have to spend so much money, and also not comparing their gym to someone else's. Like, how many different gyms have we seen in there, and not once has anyone shot anyone down, because that's not what it's about. It's being like, right, this is kind of what I've got, this is what I can afford. And then if something else comes up, they can then kind of start to rebuild their gym. So we've seen so many like volume 1, volume 2, volume 3, as people have sort of had the opportunity to do that. And that's what I've really liked. And then the people selling those things have genuinely gone back onto the marketplace or whatever and sold them for what they paid for, to allow it to kind of like pay back to where like they got into it as well, which is, you know, that's really rare now, the fact that people aren't kind of willing to just take someone's ear off for the sake of it.
I think it's a good little community that we've built up. What is it now? It's nearly 9,000 in the main group, and we're well over 10K on the sales group. So yeah, it's a nice little community that's been built up over this time. Right, next question. So Dave Brace, since having recovered from COVID, the thought of going in the gym is actually making me feel sick. Any suggestions other than man up and get on with it?
Right, I had COVID and I had this problem. Don't go to the gym yet. Go when it's time. Don't underestimate how much of an impact it will have on you. And I say this firsthand, it will wipe the floor with you, particularly fit and healthy guys as well. It really does seem to affect athletes a lot when they get it. Why that is, I don't know. You know, I won't go into that, but yeah, absolutely ruined me. This is where having a home gym was really helpful, because I would call it a day as soon as it felt too much. And I'm not kidding when I say this one set of squats was enough. Doing one set, and I couldn't do it anymore. If I did, I'd be on the floor, like lying, eyes looking up, like absolutely horrific. You have to, if you want to get back into it, you have to go back to beyond lower than normal. I think from, you know, did you coach Dave, I think?
Yeah.
And then I've followed his Facebook. I think you've gone through a particularly tough time from what I've seen. I've only seen what you've posted on Facebook and in the group and stuff, but it's brutal. It's absolutely, it's horrible. You know, this is, I guess, one of the reasons why the whole world's locked down, right? But this is generic. Take your time, but set your expectations to, even if you walk in the gym and do your warm up, that is a plus. Even if you grab hold of a band and do 20 pull-aparts, you've done a session. Your sessions are basically your warm-ups, your beginner, newbie timed session. You have to let go for the short time of what you were doing and where you want to get to. I know you've got goals, you know, obviously you do, because you're working with a coach, you've got aspirations. You have to really strip them right back. The only thing I can liken it to is when I had back surgery. If I could walk for 20 minutes, it was a massive success. So you'll see this with everyone. You know, Rachel's a great example of someone that's had to go right back to basics in terms of, have you been able to have a pain-free day? You've made success. Have you been able to do a body weight squat? You've made success. And then it's those 1% added up is where you'll start gaining momentum. So at the moment, your train has gone to a complete halt. It's stopped. What you're trying to do now is get it started. So stoking the fire, getting the wheels turning. It's slow. It takes time. You have to build that momentum. And then, you know, a couple months down the line, you know, we'll start moving. We'll start getting somewhere. and then you'll just suddenly feel, oh great, I'm back into this, and you go forward. But it's hard. It's really tough, and it's a bit humbling, shall we say. I mean, the good news is you're still here, you're still with us, which is the biggest thing. So you just have to really set many goals to hit, even if it's, walking into the gym, looking at it, tidying it up. We all laugh when the twins were born, and I just was spending more time moving things around the gym and rearranging it and setting it than actually training. But part of that was actually a conscious thing I was doing. I couldn't train the way I wanted to, or have any time. I'm not kidding when I said I had maybe 2 30-minute sessions a week, and that was the most I could handle. So I do a little bit, but it was mentally easier for me to kind of, it's like I've got a problem here, I can't stay out of the gym, to go in, move things around and feel like I was still doing something than actually lifting, because I could never get anything. By the time he'd warmed up, I'd have to, baby was crying, I couldn't train. So I was like, okay, great. But it kind of kept my toe in it a little bit, just by going in there and doing those little things. And then, 2 months later, life's completely different. At the night times I can train, and it's the best thing. We talked about earlier, it's the best thing ever. So I mean, that's my advice to you, having had it as well. It's hard, but you will get better eventually, and you can improve, but just be realistic and take your time.
Any words of wisdom, Rachel?
I think a lot just comes back down to what Dan was saying then. It's about reframing things, and it's taking a step back to be able to take a step forward. And sometimes that step back will be a giant leap. But in the grand scheme of things, is it something you want to be doing for the next 6 months and then potentially regress even further because your health has deteriorated? Or is it something you want to still be able to do in 10 years' time? That comes with maturity, that comes with age and experience as well, because you always want to be doing more and doing better and getting to where you want to be sooner and faster, but that's not always going to get the best outcome. So it is acting in your own best interests. I sound like a weird old mother telling everybody off here, don't I?
No, you've made a brilliant point there. Like, I've really enjoying talking to you, because like you get me thinking more on things. But I think what you've explained there is like your body's a cup, and you can only you don't want to overfill it. And at the moment, you're on that fine line of overfilling it. So why not take your time and really build it up over time, and really not go over that. This is injury, COVID, similar sort of things. Don't go over, because you'll set yourself back even more and get even more frustrated and get more upset, and then it becomes more of a big problem. So just tiny little things, tiny little things.
Yeah. At the minute, that right, recovery is the priority in terms of training. It should be that more of your cup needs to be filled with recovery, with training is like that sprinkle on the top, because that's if you can manage it, and gradually sort of those ratios will change. But just sort of through the medical side of the work that I do at the moment with physios and gynecologists, easy for me to say, and people involved in pelvic health. I was involved in a conference earlier on in the year, and one of the physios, he had COVID last April. He was diagnosed, obviously he was working in a hospital, and he suffered the worst long COVID ever. Really fit guy. He got back to doing things far too soon, and he is now, so this was January, he had it last April, and he's still having to have daily naps. He's having to go back to work on a very sort of flexible terms in terms of how he feels and things like that. And he's a guy who's in his late 20s, really good health, fit and healthy, running almost every day, strength training and everything. And he felt fine, so he started to get back to it. And he even eased his way back in, and then it just absolutely floored him. So do not underestimate taking your time and playing the long game, because it could be the best thing you ever do in terms of maintaining the health that you've managed to come back with, and just appreciate sort of what you do have, and just take it one day at a time. Have some mini goals, but have them set around what you want that day to look like, not the next day, not the week ahead. What can you physiologically and physically manage in that day? And even if that is, like Dan said, just going into the gym, moving things around so you feel as though mentally you're in that environment, that can be enough for the day. The next day, it might go in and be doing some seated, banded work, just taking out as much stress off the body, stress off the joints, as much fatigue out of the way as possible. So it's that regress to progress.
Yeah, so as Dan mentioned before, like I am working with Dave, And I think a big thing for him was because he got COVID and was ill for a number of weeks, like could barely move, wasn't eating like at all. He dropped a load of weight, which one of his main goals is to kind of like drop body fat. And then as things have improved and as we've been able to kind of get more back to normal, like trying to increase his steps and his eating has kind of come back to normal, that weight's all come back on. So in his mind, he's seen that number on the scale do that. And I think that started off a cascade of like mental health sort of issues, as in not feeling good enough, on top of then not kind of being able to get into the gym. So it's one thing after another is kind of all like piled up. So we jumped on a call the other day, and just like you guys said, is we've kind of regressed everything back and we've gone, right, the whole training side of stuff, like don't worry so much about it. We regressed it right back to basics. We do what we can when we can when it comes to training. However, let's focus on things we can control. We can control getting better with your eating side of stuff. So having a little bit more structure, making sure we're prepping our meals ahead of time, that we're getting plenty of nutrition into the system so that we can be maximally kind of like recovering, but it's kind of good quality food coming in. You've said you've been enjoying actually like upping your steps. So let's go over a couple of ways that we can increase that, as in like activity. Like in terms of losing body fat, you don't need to be in the gym. Like managing your diet and managing your activity levels, that's how you lose body fat over the long term. The fact we want to build some muscle at the same time is probably just going to have to take a little bit of a backseat, and we've just got to focus on that area which we can control right now, which is low intensity exercise. So hopefully it's not going to trigger any of these long-term issues like you guys have said. So completely agree kind of with both of your points, but strip it right back. We do what we can with what we have. Don't push too hard. You've had quite an up and down kind of trip with COVID and having some nasty lingering side effects. So don't push on too hard and make it so that then, as you said, your friend's having issues like months down the line. We want to get you back to being fully fit and healthy as quick as we can, but make sure that we do it in a way that's not going to basically fuck you up. Yeah, I think that pretty much covers that one. Right, last question. Pre-workout, does it have any benefit other than palpitations? So me and Dan were having a bit of a chat about, he tried, was it polar bear juice?
Yeah,
right.
I'm gonna buy some now.
So I've got my Polar Pump. This is the pump agent that they do. So this one's caffeine free, whereas the polar bear juice is pretty much the same formula, but it's got caffeine in. So the main thing with pre-workouts, the number one ingredient is going to be caffeine. So there is numerous studies about the effects of caffeine. It is a performance enhancer. It will make you more alert. It blunts fatigue, and basically, as Dan was saying, if you don't have the greatest of, I'm trying to think of how to word this now without me giving you a kick in the balls, mate. But if your lifestyle's not in the best place because of extenuating circumstances, getting a kick in the balls from your caffeine is probably going to help you. However, it is just a crutch. It's that plaster on the leak that's coming through. If you don't have twin babies that are keeping you up all night, you probably want to make sure that you have good quality nutrition, you're getting enough sleep, and you're managing your stress before relying on a pre-workout to kind of get you through a session. So that's caffeine. The other ingredients that you kind of want to look out for, this is why I got this because I can't remember the ingredients off the top of my head. You've got citrulline, which is a pump agent. So citrulline breaks down to L-arginine within your bloodstream, and that is what then breaks down into nitric oxide, which causes vasodilation within the blood vessels. That's what causes the pump. So when you're doing bodybuilding slash like hypertrophy training, you are aiming to drive blood into the muscle to cause cellular swelling to then make the muscles grow. So as I said, you're looking for L-arginine. Now, L-arginine isn't very bioavailable. If you just took a L-arginine supplement, you would have the runs because your body just can't absorb it. It just kind of passes straight through you. So that's why you have to take L-citrulline, and L-citrulline gets into your bloodstream and your body then breaks it down to L-arginine. So that's why that, and the clinical dose on that is 6 grams. You've then got creatine. Again, lots and lots of research on creatine and the kind of effects that it has. It's one of those ingredients that builds up over time. So you can't just take it as a one-off and like feel it. You've got to take like 5 grams a day for a period of time. If you're taking 5 grams a day, I think it takes about 2 or 3 weeks to become like saturated with it. And this is where the thing of like doing 20 grams a day for a week, it just means that you hit the saturation point within a week, and then you can drop it back down to 5. Either one is fine, as long as you've got good functioning kidneys. If you don't have good functioning kidneys, you probably don't want to be loading up on too much creatine. We've then got beta-alanine, which is the tingle thing that makes your face feel like it's on fire. That is a lactate buffer, and it's a similar sort of effect to creatine. It takes a little while for it to build up within your system, so you can't just take that as a one-off and it have an effect. You've got to take it for like every session or however long till there is a saturation point. And when there's a saturation point within your body, that's going to have that lactate buffering effect and mean that you can perform harder and for longer. This is a long. Betaine does the same thing. L-tyrosine, taurine, alpha, GPC, they are all nootropics. So that's meant to help you with focus, make sure that you are in the zone, kind of, as I think Elliot talked about on his review of like the supplements, like powerlifters, they don't really need focus because you're having 3 to 5 minutes between sets. Whereas with a bodybuilder where you're concentrating on that pump, you don't really want to kind of be getting distracted. You want to be in, out, done, 45 minutes, an hour, hour and a half, kind of like max. It just helps you kind of concentrate. Then you've got the pink Himalayan sea salt, and then estrogen. So the ingredients that you get like further down, they're the ones that are going to then like differ from like product to product. So your pink Himalayan sea salt, that's just some electrolytes in there, which again helps with the pump. If your salt's really low, you can't get a pump. And I have no idea I can't remember what estrogen is. So in terms of pre-workouts, there are some benefits to it. You just need to make sure that they've got the proper clinical doses. What it's meant to help you with is if you get a caffeinated one, obviously it's going to give you more energy. Get a decaffeinated one, it's got those things that I just said before. It's meant to help with a better pump, more focus, and then, as I said, there's no energy in the kind of the decaffeinated ones. So hopefully I haven't bored you guys too much with science. I know you're not that into kind of like your pre-workouts, etc., but I might have covered that. Do you guys want to add anything to it? Like, Rachel, do you use pre-workout at all?
No, so I have linked with my EDS, my hypermobility side of things. I have irritable bowel syndrome, so I can't actually handle a pre-workout. So I also have clients who've got Crohn's and colitis, and anyone who has anything linked with sort of bowels, whether it's sort of IBS side of things or other conditions, I wouldn't recommend this in the same way that too much fiber and alcohol sugars such as polyols in protein bars, these are irritants, as is a caffeine. We've got so many caffeine receptors around the body, and we've got quite a lot around sort of the pelvis itself. So if you are someone who is highly sensitive to caffeine, you'll find they're the people who will have a morning coffee and within 5 minutes are on the toilet. Like, you've got a tolerance, and for people who've got real issues sort of with the digestive side of things, you are going to have sort of those levels of tolerance that you're more acutely aware of than other people. Some people though will tolerate it, and to me it's a case of, well, I'll always go back into training here, but if you are taking a supplement, which a pre-workout is, and then going into a training session, if it does something digestively, you can be going into that session where you're not going to be comfortable to wear a belt, or positions aren't going to be comfortable because of gas, bloating, pain. And as much as people will joke about like, oh, I've taken my pre-workout, I'm definitely going to shit myself. Like, don't take a pre-workout if that's the effect it has on you. I had to remove them completely. Like, I used to love the ones that give you the itchy skin before you'd start, like when I was like heavily bodybuilding. And I'm like, yeah, I was on the toilet for like 5 minutes before I went into the gym itself. I'm like, no, I don't really want to be doing that. So I don't. And as much as Elliot will hate me saying this, I have a cup of coffee, it does the job. I'm all right.
Fair enough. Anything you want to add, Dan?
Yeah. Get the most over the top, shiniest, most colourful, most visually appealing, most heavily marketed one you can find. And then that would do.
Yeah. Or get Arctic Nutrition's one and use Home Gym UK's discount code.
You know what? I'm going to buy some because it was nice. Like, I enjoyed it. Like,
yeah.
I don't know if it's got the, I know you listed off loads, but it felt nice. I liked it.
Well, I've moved away from caffeinated ones now. Like I will use one if I need it, but I use the pump agent one every single session. As I said, I find it really, really helps me. Obviously, I'm training for hypertrophy, so anything that's going to improve pump, improve like vasodilation for me. And it's become part of my pre-workout ritual. So I'm about to kind of go out to the gym. I'll go and get my pre-workout scoop, have that. In 10-15, I've got really fast like digestion / metabolism. It takes 15 minutes for it to kick in before I get like the tingles on my face, and then it's go time. So for me, it's part of that routine. It doesn't affect me digestion wise, and so yeah, I love them. But I've moved away from the caffeinated ones because of the time of day that I'm tending to train, and you become caffeine resistant over time. So I'll keep the caffeinated ones for when I am deep into prep and I need that energy to kind of get me through the day. Same thing with like fat burners. If you're taking a caffeinated pre-workout like all the time, and then like when you get down to like 5, 6, 7% body fat, you're lethargic as hell. If you've maxed out your caffeine tolerance there, like where do you go from there? Like there isn't really anything you can do. Whereas if you haven't and you've got that as a tool, you can use that to push you on for kind of those final few weeks.
Yeah, I always look at that as like a deload week. I'll always, irrespective of how much caffeine I'm having, I'll either switch to decaf or just have like one coffee in the morning, because otherwise you're kind of not going to get the full benefit of what you're trying to do. And there's only so many coffees you should realistically be having in a day. Throwing your cans of Monster, which people forget about as well. And before you know it, you can be like just on a normal day, like heavily caffeinated by like 4 p.m.
Yeah.
Then if you're not sleeping, has other effects. So you can go down a really deep hole very, very quickly with it, unless you kind of use.
That's what she said.
Right. I think we've been for about an hour and a half, mate. Like this one's just absolutely flown by.
This is that's brilliant. I really enjoyed it. But what was I going to say? Yeah, I think we're done. But I'm getting silly now, so yeah, all good.
No worries. Right. Well, it's been great to chat to you guys. I promise I will try and get the show notes done a little bit faster this time around. So if the guys want to find you, Dan, where can they find you on Facebook and Instagram?
Dan Frazier, and then Bubbles and Beans on Instagram.
And for yourself, Rachel?
Rachel Smith on Facebook, and then rs_strength_coach on Instagram, or my gym, which is I've even forgotten the name.
Well, it's Inner Strength, isn't it?
Yeah, that's it.
Inner Strength.
Inner Strength in E or something like that. Just find it.
And I'm at DegePT on both Instagram and Facebook. So thank you for all your time tonight. Oh God, it's getting late. Thank you for all your time tonight, guys, and I will speak to you both very, very soon.
Awesome. Take care, guys.